will develop Pakistan's terror factories. Speaking of which, they're bragging about their activities in Bangladesh. Was there a Pakistani hand in Sheikh Hasina's ouster? Did the Lashkar-e-Toiba have a role? We'll tell you what their leader said in a rally. In the US, they're cracking down on Chinese students, but now there's a tricky question the Trump administration faces. Will they expel Xi Jinping's daughter too? Is she studying in Harvard? We'll tell you. Also, why is Moscow pushing for the revival of the Russia-India-China troika? Can Canada break up with the US and join the European security umbrella? How fighting between the Houthis and Israel is escalating with fresh missile attacks. How many jobs has AI taken? How Americans are being scammed into hiring North Korean remote workers? Is YouTube the TV killer? And is the toy craze getting out of hand? They're calling it kidulting. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. India's GDP grew 7.4% in the final quarter of the 2025 financial year. That's the highest in 4 quarters. Full-year growth stood at 6.5% as strong investment and public spending helped lift the economy. Russia will send a delegation to Istanbul next week for a second round of peace talks with Ukraine. The Kremlin says it is preparing conditions for a temporary truce. But Ukraine has refused to attend until Moscow shares full details of its ceasefire proposal. Emmanuel Macron says divisions between the US and China are the greatest risk that the world faces today. The French president has called for new coalitions to counter growing global uncertainty. Macron is looking to boost trade ties with Asia amid concerns over US tariff policies under President Trump. Germany is considering a 10% digital tax on tech giants like Alphabet and Meta. Berlin says the plan targets ad revenues and aims to curb aggressive tax avoidance by global platforms. And Al Nassr are putting up a fight to extend Cristiano Ronaldo's contract. This comes amid speculation that the football star is looking to leave Saudi Arabia. The Saudi club says several teams are eager to sign the 5-time Ballon d'Or winner. Terror state Pakistan is getting another cash boost. First, it was the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. They gave Pakistan a bailout, and they gave it 2 weeks after Pakistan launched a terror attack on India. They gave it when Pakistan was firing at Indian civilians. And if that wasn't bad enough, here's the next one. This is courtesy the World Bank. They have a 10-year plan for Pakistan. They will give $40 billion over a period of 10 years. They're calling it an investment plan, and they've created it exclusively for Pakistan. The World Bank will give this money, $20 billion for public projects and another $20 billion for private sector investments. The first reports to this effect came in January. Apparently, that's when the plan was cleared. And now the Pakistani press is reporting it aggressively. I'm sure they're surprised too. Because look at what's happened since January. Pakistani terrorists killed 26 civilians in India in cold blood. But that wasn't enough for the World Bank to reconsider. They're going ahead with the funding. They're calling it a country partnership framework. They insist that this money will be used for development, for early education, to eradicate childhood stunting, to shift to clean energy, to improve air quality and climate resilience and governance. But who are we kidding? This is a country whose leaders say we'll eat grass but get a nuclear bomb. This is a country that is surviving on bailouts but increasing its military budget. Does the World Bank really believe that Pakistan would prioritize childhood stunting or climate resilience over its terror factories? By investing in Pakistan, the World Bank is investing in the terrorism they export. And this is not a hypothesis, this is a fact. We showed you pictures from Pakistan yesterday. These are from the Punjab province. They show Pakistani minister sitting alongside Talha Saeed, the son of Hafiz Saeed, the mastermind of the 26/11 attacks in Mumbai. This is the reality of Pakistan, where terrorists are shielded by the state, where the army chief is on posters alongside terror chiefs. Yet the World Bank calls Pakistan a development partner, and it calls itself a bank. Well, if you're a banker, would you finance a terror regime? And this one is riddled with red flags. Pakistan is one of the world's most vulnerable economies. It owes some $131 billion in external debt. In the next 4 years alone, Pakistan must repay $100 billion. In 4 years, $100 billion. It's a country that is struggling to remain solvent. Its currency has plunged. Its reserves are depleted. Its economy is on life support. If you're a banker, would you commit $40 billion to such a player? We all know the answer. But the World Bank is playing blind to Pakistan's reality, just like the IMF. The International Monetary Fund, the lender of the last resort. The IMF has given Pakistan a record number of bailouts, 24 bailouts since 1958, the highest for any country in the world ever. It comes to almost one bailout every 3 years. And it's the same pattern. Pakistan teeters on the brink. It makes false promises of reform. The IMF gives it more money. This money does not reach the people of Pakistan, by the way. They continue to live in misery and penury. So where does the money go? It goes to the military and to their terror proteges. In 2024, Pakistan spent 14% of its budget on defense. And now it has raised its defense budget by more than 18%. Pakistan invests in guns, not grains, in warfare, not welfare. And this is not an accident, this is by design. It is enabled by a system that keeps feeding it money. A system that includes the IMF and the World Bank. They are indirectly bankrolling terror, disguised as development and packaged as global cooperation. These institutions are not just enablers, they have now become stakeholders. Stakeholders in a state that breeds terror and defends extremism. The World Bank calls it a long-term partnership. But let's call it what it is. Long-term terror sponsorship. The gloves are off in Bangladesh. It's a full-fledged fight for power in Dhaka. On one side is Muhammad Yunus, on the other is the BNP, or the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. Until this week, things were largely cordial between the two. Yes, there were some differences, but they remained behind closed doors. Not anymore, though. Yunus and the BNP are now directly attacking each other. This week, the BNP held a massive rally. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets in Dhaka. They demand that polls be held by December 2025. As the BNP protested, Muhammad Yunus flew to Tokyo. He's on a 4-day trip to Japan. And while there, he is attacking the BNP. Listen to his latest remarks. I'm quoting. If we want to leave the country in the same state, then we can talk about elections in December. But if we need good reforms, then we have to wait another 6 months. Some people are asking to leave the reforms and finish the elections. Not all political parties, only one party is saying this. Now, two things to note here. As interim chief, Muhammad Yunus is supposed to steer clear of politics. He should not support or oppose any political party. So for him to target the BNP says a lot, and that too while he's in a foreign country. That's point one. Secondly, he's factually wrong. Today, an alliance of 12 political parties held a press conference. They too demanded elections by December 2025, this year. So it's not just one party, not just the BNP. Most parties in Bangladesh want early elections. But guess who doesn't? The parties that support Yunus. I'm talking about the Jamaat-e-Islami and the Students' Party. Both of them are willing to delay elections. They say, complete the reforms and punish the Awami League, Sheikh Hasina's party. Punish them. After that, elections can be held. It's frankly a dead giveaway. These groups do not feel confident about their chances in December, hence their push to delay the polls. And the BNP knows it. Listen to one of their leaders. This is what they said. Dr. Yunus said only one party wants elections. But we want to say it's not a party that wants elections. It's one man who doesn't want elections, and that is Dr. Yunus. Like I said, the gloves are off. There is no pretense of being friendly. Both sides are attacking each other openly. The question is, where does this end? Well, the BNP has made its intentions clear. They have started mobilizing their supporters on the ground. This week's protest was an example of that. Their party chief asked the cadre to ensure an election by December, which could hint at a public movement. Of course, Yunus has his muscle too. He is backed by radical Islamist elements in Bangladesh, maybe even from outside. Yesterday, we told you about a rally in Pakistan's Punjab. It was organized by the Lashkar-e-Toiba. Almost all speeches there sounded the same. Anti-India and hateful. But one of them stood out, because it talks about the Lashkar's role in Bangladesh, specifically the Lashkar's role in the ouster of Sheikh Hasina.
पाकिस्तान वो मुल्क है जिसने आज तक अपने किसी दुश्मन को माफ नहीं किया और तुझे इस बात का अच्छी तरह से इल्म है। तू जानता है कि हमने पिछले साल के अंदर तुझे बांग्लादेश में शिकस्त दी। मोदी तू जानता है बांग्लादेश में तुझे शिकस्त हमने दी है।
That was Muzammil Hashmi. He is a designated Lashkar terrorist. And he says the Lashkar-e-Toiba had a role in Sheikh Hasina's ouster. If true, it is not surprising. The biggest radical group in Bangladesh is the Jamaat. They had supported Pakistan in 1971. The Jamaat had supported Pakistan. Many of their leaders aided the genocide of Bangladeshis. Even today, the Jamaat is said to have ties with the ISI, the Inter-Services Intelligence, Pakistan's infamous spy agency. And the same ISI also funds and supports the Lashkar-e-Toiba. So the nexus is very much a possibility. Plus, just look at what Yunus is doing. He has invited Pakistani soldiers to Bangladesh. He has started direct trade with Pakistan. He has eased visa rules for Pakistanis, and he has hosted top Pakistani diplomats. Basically, Mohammed Yunus has reset ties with Islamabad. At home, he has also unleashed radical Islamist forces. A number of convicted terrorists have been freed from jails. Yunus claims that they were political prisoners. But who are we kidding? This is Mohammed Yunus cozying up to Islamists. The Lashkar may or may not have been directly involved in Dhaka, but their ideology runs rampant under Yunus. Bangladesh was founded on the promise of rejecting Pakistan's Islamist vision, that religion alone can hold a country together. Mohammed Yunus is reversing that liberation ideology. He is unleashing forces he cannot hope to control. For our next story, let's turn back the clock. The year was 1978. China was under Deng Xiaoping. The government sent its brightest minds to the United States. Scholars, scientists, engineers. The mission was to learn from the West, bring that knowledge home, and modernize a nation still finding its footing. US-China relations were just beginning to thaw. So education became an unlikely yet powerful bridge. By the 1980s, that bridge became a superhighway. Chinese students flooded American universities. They excelled and many stayed back. These students were the symbol of growing US-China ties. But that changed as the relationship soured. There were whispers of espionage. It turned into investigations. Then came the visa crackdowns, and now a sweeping new move from Washington. The US plans to revoke the visas of Chinese students. Why now? What does this mean for US-China relations, and how does Xi Jinping's own daughter feature in this story? Let's start with the announcement. Like I said, the US is revoking visas for Chinese students. It is for two types of students. One, those linked with the CCP, the Communist Party of China. Washington has not specified, but we know that the CCP has around 100 million members. China has around 400 million families, so basically 1 in every 4 citizens is somehow automatically linked to the Chinese Communist Party. That's one category of students. 2, the students who are studying in critical fields. Again, Washington has not specified what is critical, but chances are they're referring to fields like advanced science, technology, engineering, and medicine.
The United States, I further can say here, will not tolerate the CCP's exploitation of U.S. universities or theft of U.S. research, intellectual property, or technologies to grow its military power, conduct intelligence collection, or repress voices of opposition. The Trump administration is focused on protecting our nation and our citizens by upholding our national security and public safety through our visa process, obviously very openly and transparently applied by Secretary Marco Rubio.
So how is Beijing responding to this? China is calling the move discriminatory. It has accused Washington of weaponizing national security, also damaging the rights of Chinese students.
China firmly opposes this and has lodged representations with the U.S. This politically discriminatory practice by the U.S. exposes the lie of so-called freedom and openness that the U.S. has always touted, and will further damage their own international image and national credibility.
The U.S. is home to 1.13 million international students. Some 277,000 of them are from China. That is 1 in every 4. 1 in 4 foreign students on American soil is Chinese. That's a lot of students, and they are now in a limbo.
If this situation of not getting a visa really, truly happens to me, then I might consider applying again next year. And when I reapply, I'll probably consider places outside of the US, like Europe, as well as regions such as Hong Kong and Singapore.
China will see a reduction in brain drain. Some people may not want to return after studying and living overseas. But with this policy, more people might reconsider going abroad to study and live.
But right now, Republicans are not worried about all of them. They're fixated on just one student. Her name is Xi Mingzi. She's the daughter of Chinese President Xi Jinping. Now, let me show you a tweet. It's by a right-wing activist called Laura Loomer. She claims the Chinese president's daughter, Xi Mingzi, is living in Massachusetts. Apparently, she studies at Harvard. And Laura Loomer wants to go confront her. Now, as of now, this is a claim that Xi's daughter lives in the US. Xi Mingzi is Xi Jinping's only daughter. She leads a very private life. She did study at Harvard, but that was from 2010 to 2014, and she did so under a pseudonym. She earned a degree in psychology, and Chinese officials say that after that she returned home. But now reports suggest that she went back to Harvard in 2019, and this was to resume graduate studies. Apparently, she lives in Massachusetts with Chinese guards. Like I said, these reports have not been confirmed. Both the US and China are silent on the matter, but here's what we know. In 2019, a Chinese technician was sentenced to 14 years in prison. Do you know what his crime was? leaking Xi Mingzi's ID details, iCard details. So clearly Beijing is very protective about her. And this tweet exposes a tricky contradiction. If Chinese students are a national security risk in the US, what about the child of China's most powerful leader? Will the US expel Xi Jinping's daughter if she is still at Harvard? And where does that go from here? The pause on visa appointments is temporary, but it may foreshadow a lasting shift. In his last stint as president, Trump cracked down on Chinese students. This time, he's moving towards a more restrictive policy. China may retaliate with its own restrictions. This could fuel their decoupling. But what about the students? They're navigating an academic world that now feels more like a border crossing. In the late 1970s, Chinese students arrived in the US with hope. In 2025, they arrive under scrutiny and suspicion. Guess education is no longer a neutral space. Vantage continues after a short break.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
उत्तर प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री श्रीमान योगी आदित्यनाथ जी, केंद्रीय मंत्रिमंडल के मेरे साथी, यहां उप मुख्यमंत्री केशव प्रसाद मौर्य और श्री ब्रिजेश पाठक जी, उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार में मंत्री, सांसद, विधायक और विशाल संख्या में पधारे हुए कानपुर के मेरे प्यारे भाई और बहनों, एक बच्ची शायद यहां कोई पेंटिंग बना करके जरा एसपीजी के लोग उसे ले ले। उधर भी कोई एक चित्र बना करके लाया है, उस कोने में आप अपना अता पता उस पर लिख देना, मैं चिट्ठी भेजूंगा। एक उधर कोने में कोई नौजवान है, उसका अता पता लिख लीजिए ताकि मैं आपको चिट्ठी लिखूंगा। ये इधर एक बालक कब से हाथ उठा रहा है। तेरे कंधे पर दर्द होगा, आज थक जाओगे। आज कानपुर का उत्साह बड़ा जोरों पर है भाई। उधर कोई जरा फोटोग्राफर उधर देखो, एसपीजी के लोग जरा उस बच्चे को मदद करो।
Right now, Pakistan is probably the most hated country in India, especially after what happened in Pahalgam. On the other end of the spectrum is probably Russia, a country that Indians generally like. Our ties go back many decades. It is the one country we have always counted on. But is that changing? I ask because of some recent moves. Yesterday, Russia's foreign minister proposed a bold move. He called for the revival of the RIC, the Russia-India-China trilateral.
I would like to confirm our sincere interest in the earliest possible resumption of the work of the Russia-India-China Troika, which was established on the initiative of Yevgeny Maximovich Primakov many years ago. Now when, as I understand it, India and China have been reaching an understanding on how to calm the situation on the border down, it seems to me that the time has come to revive this troika, the RIC Troika.
Now, first, some background. This trilateral dates back to the 1990s. It is basically an intergovernmental forum. At the RIC, or RIC, these three countries could meet and discuss key issues, whether it's trade or foreign policy or energy. This trilateral has held more than 20 meetings so far. Russia, India, China. 20 meetings, but it's been dormant since 2020. And why is that? Because India and China were in a standoff in 2020. China provoked India at the Galwan Valley in Ladakh. After that, ties between New Delhi and Beijing were frozen, and so was this trilateral. But last year, India and China struck a deal. They agreed to pull back and reset ties. And this has given hope to Russia. Moscow feels this is the right time to revive the trilateral. But what's in it for them? Well, Russia's goal is to create a rival bloc to the West. India and China are key to that mission. They are big militaries and big economies, so Moscow needs India and China to cooperate, whether it's in the BRICS or the Shanghai Cooperation Organization or the RIC trilateral. Plus, if China and India fight, it puts Russia in an awkward position. They have very close ties with both countries. So Moscow will be stuck in the middle, hence the push to revive this dormant group. But should India go along with it? We haven't heard from the government yet, but there are three factors that New Delhi should consider. Number one, China's recent support to Pakistan. They make up 80% of Islamabad's weapons imports, the Chinese. Beijing also gave satellite assistance to the Pakistan army after Operation Sindoor. In other words, China actively backed Pakistan against India. Should New Delhi reward that behavior by reviving the RIC? Factor number two, Russia and Pakistan are getting closer. In 2023, Islamabad began buying gas from Russia. The decision had angered the West, but Pakistan went ahead anyway. This week, another deal was signed by the two countries. Moscow is helping Pakistan rebuild a steel plant. This plant is located on the outskirts of Karachi. Until the early 1990s, it used to be operated by Soviet officials. Once rebuilt, it will reduce Pakistan's steel imports considerably, almost by a third. There's also military cooperation. Russia and Pakistan hold joint anti-terrorism drills. The latest was in October last year. So Moscow and Islamabad are not strangers anymore. They know each other well. And finally, the third factor, the nature of ties between Russia and China. They call it a no-limits partnership. And it exploded after the war in Ukraine. The trade with China is key to Russia's economic survival. Last year, it stood at $244 billion, Russia-China trade. Russia exports mainly raw materials, including oil and gas. China exports mainly finished goods, including some dual-use technology. So you could say that Russia needs China more than ever. Now compare that to Russia-India ties. Our trade is just 1/4 of Russia's trade with China. Plus, we don't share Russia's anti-Western goals. China does. So can we expect Moscow to stand with us against the Chinese? These are the three factors that India must consider. It is true that our ties with Moscow have changed, but they've given us no reason to doubt them. As for China, it's still not all good stuff. Moscow and Beijing are competing for influence in Central Asia. I'm sure Russia would like India's support in that mission. In fact, India and Russia are building a transport corridor in the region. So in conclusion, let me say this. There is no reason to re-evaluate ties with Russia. At the same time, there is a need for better understanding. India has serious concerns about Pakistan and China. As a trusted partner, Moscow must accept that.
We decide what happens here. To transform Canada with a similar focus on economies.
Canada is like a +1. Never the main character, never the life of the party, and never free to make its own choices. What the US did, so did Canada. But Donald Trump is shaking up that equation. First, he talked about annexing Canada, and then he started a trade war with them. So it looks like Canada is exploring alternatives. Their Prime Minister has unveiled a new plan. He wants to join the European Union's mega defense project. It was announced in March last year. It's called Rearm Europe. Now, the plan is to spend $900 billion on defense, not on buying foreign weapons, but on building up Europe's defense industry. This plan has two broad goals. A, to deter possible Russian aggression, and B, to reduce dependence on US arms. And of course, Canada shares these goals. Around 75% of their defense spending goes to the US for Canada. 75% of the defense spending goes to the US into buying American weapons, which is why Ottawa is looking to diversify. But frankly, this goes beyond just military ties. This could be a broad realignment. Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke about it after his election win. He said Canada's old relationship with the US was over.
Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily increasing integration, is over. The system of open global trade anchored by the United States, a system that Canada has relied on since the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped deliver prosperity for a country for decades, is over.
There are two factors here. One is obviously Donald Trump's rhetoric. He basically pushed Canada into Europe's embrace. Secondly, Carney has a European connect, especially with the UK. As a student, he studied at Oxford. As a banker, he worked in London. And in 2013, he was appointed to lead the Bank of England. In fact, Carney was the first non-Briton to head their central bank. And this was before Brexit. So chances are he interacted closely with Brussels. Once he became Prime Minister, this affinity became clear. He did not visit the US for his first foreign trip. He traveled to France and Britain. And in Paris, he made a big statement. He called Canada the most European of non-European nations.
I want to ensure that France and the whole of Europe works enthusiastically with Canada, the most European of non-European countries.
The policies match too. Carney supports Europe on Ukraine. He also shares their policy on Gaza. This month, he released a joint statement with London and Paris. All three condemned Israel's plan to invade the Strip. So there's policy agreement, cultural affinity, and political will on all sides. The question is, how far can this partnership go? And how will Trump react? Well, some people have taken it absurdly far. Look at this opinion poll from March. It found that 46% Canadians wanted to join the EU. Now, to put that in context, only 45% people in Britain want to rejoin the EU. So it looks like the EU is more popular in Canada than in Britain. What's even more absurd, one member of the European Parliament is pushing for it. He took the proposal to the EU Commission. He demanded that Canada be considered for membership. And the response? A straightforward no. The EU treaty only allows European countries to join, and Canada is not European. It's a North American country. Nonetheless, the MP is not giving up. He says the definition of Europe is flexible. For example, Cyprus is geographically located in West Asia, yet it is part of the EU. I don't think that argument will find many takers in Brussels, but either way, the story is not about the membership. The story is the proximity here. Trump's rhetoric has alienated a long-time ally, a neighbor it could virtually take for granted. Which brings us to our second question. How will Donald Trump react to all of this? He has proposed a defense project of his own, an air defense system called the Golden Dome. Trump is hoping that Canada will join it, but again, the problem is his approach. He is asking Canada to pay $61 billion for this project, unless Canada joins the US, in which case it is free. Such moves will push Canada away from the US. But a clean breakup is unlikely. Canada is too dependent on America for security and trade. Plus, geography is on Trump's side. The Canadians fear Russian aggression in the Arctic, and the Americans can help Canada with that. But the Europeans, even if they want to, they lack the capability right now. So as things stand, this is a break, not a breakup. But if Trump keeps this up, you never know. Now let's talk about West Asia. The war in Gaza is spilling over and expanding. Israel's Ben Gurion airport was targeted today. A missile fired by Yemen's Houthis set off sirens near Tel Aviv. It was intercepted, but the message was loud and clear. The Houthis are escalating. This was their 16th strike on Israel in just 1 month. This attack comes after Israeli strikes in Yemen. Houthi leaders say they will keep firing until the war in Gaza ends. Israel has now agreed to a US-backed ceasefire plan, but Hamas is not yet on board. It wants Israel to commit to troop withdrawals and unrestricted aid. But Israel is still carrying out strikes in Gaza, and while a ceasefire proposal is on the table, peace remains a distant possibility. Here's a report.
The missiles are flying again. The Houthis have targeted Israel's main airport. A missile was fired towards Ben Gurion. Sirens rang out as Israeli air defense systems swung into action. The attack was intercepted, but the message was clear. The Houthis are not done just yet.
The Yemeni armed forces assure all our faithful and struggling Yemeni people that, with Allah's help, they will continue to fulfill their religious, moral, and humanitarian duty toward our people in Palestine until the aggression against them stops and the siege is lifted.
This was the 16th missile launched at Israel this month by the Houthis. The trigger, an Israeli airstrike. Targets in Sana'a were hit a day before, including a plane used by the group at the Sana'a airport. The Sana'a airport is important for the people of Yemen. It's critical for the supply of medicines and other aid. Within 24 hours, the Houthis responded in kind. And they're not firing at random, they are picking high-profile targets. Israel says most of these attacks have failed. The Houthi missiles were either intercepted or they missed their target. But that hasn't stopped the Houthis. Each time they push the range further. They pick symbolic targets to send a message, like Ben Gurion Airport. The goal isn't just damage, it's disruption and attention. This comes after the Americans ended their campaign against Yemen. This month, Trump announced a halt to US strikes.
They don't want to fight anymore. They just don't want to fight.
But the fact is, America was suffering heavy losses. The US started its operation in March. The goal was to stop the Houthis from attacking US forces in the region. The Americans spent over $1 billion on the operation, and they lost 7 drones and 2 fighter jets in the process. More importantly, the American operation failed to deter the Houthis. They still want to keep fighting Israel. The group says their operations will continue until Israel ends the war in Gaza. In the last 24 hours, over 50 people have been killed by fresh Israeli strikes there, even though there's a ceasefire proposal on the table. Israel says it has agreed to an American plan. It includes a proposal for a 60-day ceasefire and humanitarian aid channeled through the United Nations. But Hamas isn't on board yet. Hamas leaders see the US proposal as one-sided. To them, it protects Israel's position but offers no guarantee of peace. They want clear commitments, a full troop withdrawal, and unrestricted flow of aid into Gaza. Without that, a ceasefire seems unlikely. West Asia is still on a knife's edge as the war in Gaza spills across the region.
Artificial intelligence is coming for your job. AI is going to replace you. In just a few years, we'll all be out of work. Are you tired of hearing this? Well, join the club. AI is the buzzword of the decade, but it's also being pegged as the killer of all jobs. Well, here's another such warning, and this time it's from someone who is building an AI future. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei. In a recent interview, he did not sugarcoat it. He said up to half of all entry-level white-collar jobs could disappear. AI could wipe out 50% of these jobs. If that happens, unemployment could shoot up to 20%, which is a level not seen since the Great Depression. It's a chilling prediction. And Amodei knows it. But he says it's time for governments and AI companies to stop pretending otherwise. Now you might wonder, what is the point? What's the point of studying for years, then climbing the corporate ladder, only to be replaced by a bot? I get it. It sounds bleak. It feels like the future is closing in before we've even found our footing. But here's the real question. How much of this is actually happening? AI was supposed to take all our jobs. How many has it taken until now? Tonight we have some numbers. Globally, 14% workers have been affected by AI. They were either displaced or they changed their careers because of AI. Now, 14% is a very big number. It comes to around 375 million workers. All of them, of course, did not lose their jobs. But how many did? There is no combined estimate yet, but it could be somewhere between 4 to 5 million jobs. In the United States, 1.9 million jobs were lost directly due to AI adoption. In China, 1.2 million jobs were lost in logistics and basic manufacturing. In India, 650,000 IT service jobs were lost, and so on in many countries. And all of these add up to around 5 million jobs in all. Now, let's look at the worst affected sectors. First is customer service and call centers. They were the first in the line of fire, and the reason is automation. Using AI-powered chatbots and virtual assistants. Globally, around 1.2 million jobs were lost in this sector thanks to AI. 2. IT services and tech support. Again, AI now handles basic troubleshooting, software testing, and back-end tasks. So estimated jobs lost are around 850,000. 3. Warehousing and logistics. AI-driven robots work in factories. Sorting, packing, and inventory management is automated. So globally, 1.1 million jobs have been cut. 4. Administrative and clerical jobs. AI tools are now doing the heavy lifting here. They're handling scheduling, data entry, invoice processing, and reporting. So you no longer need humans for this kind of stuff. Around 750,000 jobs were lost in this sector. 5. Banking and financial services. AI is replacing analysts. compliance officers, and back office staff. Around 400,000 jobs have been cut. 6. Retail and e-commerce. AI helps in inventory management, cashierless stores, and customer analytics. So 300,000 jobs, 3 lakh jobs have been cut in this sector. And here's another twist. Women's jobs are more at risk. This is according to a United Nations study. It says 41% of women's jobs are exposed to AI, but for men it's only 28%. Do you know why? Because many female-dominated fields are easier to automate, like administrative support or customer service. So it doesn't matter if you're ready or not, artificial intelligence is replacing people. Sometimes it's also backfiring. For example, at Klarna, it is a buy now, pay later company. It set out to replace people with AI in 2023, but by 2025, the company's CEO had a stark realization. AI can replace some jobs, but it has its limits. Then there is IBM. In 2023, it was predicted to replace 8,000 jobs with AI. So far, IBM has managed only a few hundred. In fact, AI has created newer jobs. So there is some hope there. But mostly, the numbers paint a bleak picture. By 2026, 75 million jobs could be displaced by AI. Simultaneously, 133 million jobs may be created. But they will require entirely different skills. And who gets those new jobs? If history is any guide, it's the people who are already ahead, the more educated, the more connected. Those at the losing end are often the working class. So I guess the question is not whether AI is coming for your job. The question is whether the people building AI care enough to soften the blow. This is not a sometime in the future story. It is happening now. So the time for polite optimism has passed. The machines are here. The pink slips are being handed out. We will have to act fast to retrain, to regulate, and to reimagine work. And if we don't, the future won't be artificially intelligent. It will just be artificially human. Vantage continues after a short break.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
उत्तर प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री श्रीमान योगी आदित्यनाथ जी, केंद्रीय मंत्रिमंडल के मेरे साथी, यहां उप मुख्यमंत्री केशव प्रसाद मौर्य और श्री ब्रिजेश पाठक जी, उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार में मंत्री, सांसद, विधायक और विशाल संख्या में पधारे हुए कानपुर के मेरे प्यारे भाई और बहनों, एक बच्ची शायद यहां कोई पेंटिंग बना करके जरा एसपीजी के लोग उसे ले ले। उधर भी कोई एक चित्र बना करके लाया है, उस कोने में आप अपना अता पता उस पर लिख देना, मैं चिट्ठी भेजूंगा। एक उधर कोने में कोई नौजवान है, उसका अता पता लिख लीजिए ताकि मैं आपको चिट्ठी लिखूंगा। ये इधर एक बालक कब से हाथ उठा रहा है। तेरे कंधे पर दर्द होगा आज, थक जाओगे। आज कानपुर का उत्साह बड़ा जोरों पर है भाई। उधर कोई जरा फोटोग्राफर उधर देखो, एसपीजी के लोग जरा उस बच्चे को मदद करो। भारत माता की।
The US has a remote work problem, and we aren't talking about low productivity. We're talking about North Korean operatives. Hundreds of top companies in the United States are hiring remote workers only to discover that the employees are scammers. They're sitting in North Korea and working remotely. And how are they pulling this off? By stealing identities of American citizens, using high-tech AI softwares to crack interviews, using front companies in China and Russia for their operations, and even so-called laptop farms in the US, where Americans help facilitate this operation. It is quite elaborate and problematic because apparently this is being done to funnel money back to the North Korean regime to fund the country's missile program. Here's a report.
More flexibility, a better work-life balance, and work from home. Remote work is convenient for employees and also for North Korean scammers. Because remote work has opened the door for operatives from the Hermit Kingdom looking to work in the United States. And their goal, cashing in on top salaries to funnel money back to Pyongyang for its weapons program. According to reports, a growing number of North Korean tech workers are setting up front companies in China or Russia, then tricking US companies into hiring them. While it's hard to track the scale of this operation, reportedly, nearly every Fortune 500 company has struggled with this problem. Few talk about it, often out of embarrassment or fear of retaliation. But this is a large-scale scam. According to cyber intelligence platforms, there are at least 35 China-based companies. They can be registered as textile or building material companies, but they are linked to North Korean IT operations. These companies are hubs for Pyongyang scams. Speaking of scamming hubs, there are also so-called laptop farms. According to reports, there are dozens of them in the United States, and they get help from American citizens. They operate dozens of laptops meant to be used by legitimate remote workers living in the United States. But this is simply a front. The actual employees are reportedly North Koreans who've infiltrated US firms. Here's how this elaborate operation works. These scammers steal US identities. They look for jobs on popular job portals like LinkedIn and Upwork. They use a range of methods, like sophisticated AI technology, to secure jobs in America. Once they get it, they coordinate with someone in the United States who can provide them cover, like accepting a laptop delivery from work, setting up online connections, or facilitating paychecks. Meanwhile, North Koreans log into the laptops from overseas and they use a remote access software to work. Earlier this year, an American citizen pleaded guilty after being arrested for working as a laptop farmer. She worked with North Korean operatives for 3 years. She helped steal American identities and ran laptops to sustain the operations. As per reports, this particular scheme alone generated more than $17 million, which was then funneled to the Kim Jong-un government. and it involved North Korean hires at more than 300 US companies. Last year, the United States arrested 14 North Koreans. They extorted funds worth at least $88 million for the North Korean regime over a span of 6 years. And these are not one-off incidents. According to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the scam involves thousands of North Korean workers. They dupe companies and gather intelligence like intellectual property or company secrets, and then take back hundreds of millions of dollars into North Korea, which is quite an addition to the cash-strapped country's economy. International sanctions have frozen money flows to the country. Food rations are dwindling. Despite this, the country has a missiles program that needs funding. So Pyongyang has grown creative. It has flipped the gig economy on its head. After all, as they say, if you can't beat them, join them.
It did not happen overnight. Back in the day, you were flipping channels, watching reruns of your favorite show on cable. Now, your TV autoplays YouTube videos on loop without you even touching the remote. In 2025, YouTube is not just a social media platform, it is your living room, your newsroom, your cable box, your everything. Some call it the TV killer. But how did we get here? How did YouTube take over everything? It started in 2005, that's when YouTube was born. This was out of a need to share videos online. Its early content was raw, weird, and amateur, like home videos, personal vlogs, skating fails, and yes, a lot of cats. It was not like television, and YouTube hammered home that point, that we are not TV. But something changed in the last decade. The content on YouTube evolved, and so did the creators. They weren't just people with webcams anymore. They were personalities, experts, entertainers, journalists. Suddenly, YouTube was not just a place to watch viral clips. It was where you went for any and every kind of content. Then came YouTube TV. Launched in 2017, it quietly grew into a giant. As of 2024, it's the third largest subscription TV provider in the US, the third largest. Think about that. This is a platform that started with a 19-second grainy video. It is now beating legacy cable companies. The reason is the change in our consumption patterns. Once upon a time, families gathered around one television set. Prime time was sacred. There was appointment viewing, your favorite show at 8, then the news at 9, and it worked because there weren't too many options. Cable gave us content, but it was still curated, linear, and expensive. Then came streaming. Netflix cracked the model. Other platforms poked holes in it. But YouTube blew it open. And that is because YouTube was not TV, it was anti-TV. Viewers chose what to watch, when to watch it, whom to watch, and for how long. It democratized the whole process. Want a 2-minute breakdown of the latest election? You can get it on YouTube. A 3-hour ASMR soap carving video? Well, you can get that too. It's all there on one infinitely scrollable feed. In 2024, 9.9% of all TV streaming time in the US was spent on YouTube. It's especially popular among younger viewers. About 48% of YouTube's TV viewership is under 34 years old. And in India, the numbers are even bigger. India has the world's largest YouTube audience, around 491 million users. 122 million access YouTube daily. In some cases, users spend an average of 2.5 hours on YouTube every single day. Much of it is on TV screens. So YouTube is clearly taking over. And this takeover is most apparent in the world of news. Traditional newsrooms still exist, but their dominance is gone. Replacing them are YouTube channels. And mind you, it is not just repurposed TV. On YouTube, news is explained, it is engaging, it reaches out to young people in a way that traditional media fails. And this is not unique to India, this is a global phenomenon. Most international news organizations have turned YouTube into a second newsroom. Often it is the main one, their primary one. They create content specifically for YouTube, and now YouTube is coming for sitcoms. In 2011, it planned to invest $100 million in original programming. This went to original creators, but now creators are increasing the length of their videos. Say, the video they usually make is for 10 minutes. Now they're aiming for 30 minutes or more. And why is that? So that it is best viewed on larger screens, aka television. Some are even turning them into series, with an episode coming out every few days. So will this truly be the death knell for television? I guess television as we know it is already dead. And no, we are not saying no one watches TV anymore. People still do. But there's a shift in the pattern in which content is consumed. The primetime sitcom, the linear news broadcast, the channel flipping on weekends, that is gone for good. But storytelling, entertainment, news, that is not dead. It's just moved platforms. So I guess YouTube did not kill TV. It reinvented it.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. Big breaking news coming in at the top of the bulletin when it comes to the politics surrounding Operation Sindoor, where another Congress leader has jumped into the fray to question the military operation that punished Pakistan. Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu has alleged that the Modi government declared a ceasefire with Pakistan without taking the three armed forces into confidence. Sukhu has in fact even said that this is in stark contrast to the leadership of former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, who never compromised with national security. A stunning charge coming in from the sitting Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister against the Modi government. So after Revanth Reddy, another charge coming in from a top Congress leader, Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu of Himachal Pradesh. The Chief Minister of the state has said that the ceasefire was declared without consultation with the three forces. A big charge coming in from the Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister, also drawing the comparisons with Indira Gandhi, saying that her leadership was much more decisive than that of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, even claiming that the Congress has never compromised with national security. So that is a big charge coming in from Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu after the Telangana Chief Minister Revanth Reddy. Remember, he has stated that the government must answer how many Rafales were downed by the Pakistani forces. All of these statements are now being used by the Pakistani propaganda machine to peddle lies against the Indian state. That is something that the Congress continues to find itself in, this entire quagmire of Pakistani propaganda. But Sukhu has also now added more fuel to the fire. He has now directly questioned the Modi government, claiming that the ceasefire between India and Pakistan in the wake of Operation Sindoor was only announced without consultations with the three armed forces, is the pitch coming in from the sitting Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister, also claiming that Indira Gandhi was a much more decisive leader as compared to Prime Minister Modi, claiming that the Congress never compromised with national security. So that is the charge coming in, despite the briefings which have come in from several wings of the military, from all the three wings, the Army, the Air Force and the Navy. Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu making this charge against the Modi government. I'm joined by my colleague Pallavi Ghosh on the broadcast. So Pallavi, we've seen all those different briefings. First,